Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Kung Fu for the Nintendo Entertainment System. In this 1985 beat-em-up from Nintendo, Thomas the Kung Fu guy has to save his girlfriend Sylvia from Mr. X and his no-good gang of miscreants. So I'd consider Kung Fu to be somewhat of a proto-brawler. You fight off enemy waves with various attacks across multiple screens, but there are no foreground or background planes to navigate, no special weapons to pick up, and no held areas that have to be cleared before progressing. And to be honest, that's exactly how I like it. The game has a total of 5 floors, where you walk from one end to the other, defeating bad guys until you reach a boss. And you can take them all out with your choice of various Kung Fu punches and kicks. You get more points for punching, but I mostly stuck to kicks because, as human anatomy dictates, Thomas's legs have a slightly longer range than his arms. I mean, he's no T-Rex, but the difference is noticeable enough that Kung Feet is definitely the way to go. Especially because the leg sweep is the most versatile move in the game. See, the main enemies here are tall running guys and short running guys, and you have to attack low for the short ones, or else you run the risk of getting hugged to death, because half the enemies in this game just want to give you a nice loving embrace. But for Thomas, such an intrusion of personal space is literally invasive enough to kill him. I'm right there with you, Thomas. I don't need more affection, I need more hand sanitizer. Aside from these standard enemies, there are also knife-throwing guys that treat your ankles and forehead like a cutting board, snakes that are immune to attacks once they slither out of their jars, fire-breathing dragons that would be much more intimidating if they weren't the size of your average squirrel, and moths, the kind of bug that doesn't appear very threatening until you see one close up and find yourself having nightmares for the rest of the week. The bosses are the main interest of the game, though. On floor 1, you fight a samurai who's considerate enough to keep his sword in its sheath out of respect for your various limbs remaining intact, but is perfectly fine with clubbing you to death. On floor 2, you encounter a boomerang guy who, throws boomerangs. On floor 3, you face a tank top guy with big muscles and an even bigger mouth, which is somehow more nightmare-inducing than the moths. And on floor 4, you face the hardest boss of the game, some kind of undead warlock guy made of smoke and pure frustration. He throws fireballs that turn into snakes and moths and even a clone of himself if the fight takes too long. Which it probably will, because instead of just kicking his shins to oblivion like everybody else, you've got to knock his head off like a million times. Not only is it disturbing, but his life bar doesn't even deplete when he gets decapitated. So for a while there, I thought I wasn't even doing any damage to him. The last boss, Mr. X, is just another Kung Fu guy who's honestly pretty unremarkable aside from his awkward fighting stance. He curls his wrists up and erratically tiptoes around like the floorboards are burning his tootsies. You can tell he's pretty scared of your shin kicks. And he should be, because most of the time, that's all it takes to do him in. I'd describe the visuals in this game as serviceable, but not particularly appealing. Aside from maybe the dragons, they're pretty cool. The sound design is my favorite part of Kung Fu, though. Sure, the background music is the same for the whole game, but what I'm really here for is the crunchy, digitized voice samples. I mean, a train of shin kicks is at least 75% more satisfying when it's accompanied by an endless barrage of hoo, 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 hoo. Not to mention that endearingly compressed maniacal laughter bosses spit out whenever they get the best of you. It almost makes me okay with getting killed by old Pac-Man face over there. Which is a good thing, because I got killed a lot. This game is absolutely brutal, considering it's meant to be looped several times for a high score, and it's all because of that accursed warlock guy. He ruined pretty much every run I had, and it took a lot of save state practice and even more luck for me to finally finish just a single loop, but only on game mode A, mind you. Apparently, Nintendo didn't think Kung Fu was hard enough, so they added an even more difficult mode B to kick your teeth in with extra efficiency. I was never able to loop those levels without save states, and even then, I just barely managed. If I could change one thing here, I'd consider making the enemy appearances and boss patterns consistent over every attempt. As is, the game randomizes everything, which means you can't strategically plan attack sequences. I mean, I appreciate a game that keeps you on your toes, but this one had me feeling a little too much like Mr. X with his burnin' tootsies. Overall, the martial arts classes I took when I was 10 definitely didn't prepare me for Kung Fu, but at least I had save states to help practice my way to one legit loop. And even though poor Sylvia just gets captured indefinitely after each clear, Kung Fu is fun enough that I don't mind leading Thomas back to the rescue, kicking shins and letting out garbled 8-bit yells to his heart's content. Hoo, 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 hoo!